And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, episode 354. Have a friend of the show, returning guest, joining us this evening. He's you don't need a big introduction, but everybody knows who this man is. He deserves a big introduction. He is the creator of TGFBI. He is the one of the co-founders, I guess, or he runs it now, of BARF. Thanks to Laura Michaels and everything there. He is on the Sleeper and the Bust, Friends with Fancy Benefits, Rotographs. He's might as well be on RotoWare for all we know. He does it all, and Danielle is in charge. So joining me tonight, you can find him on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. Justin, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. It's always good to sit down and talk with you. I feel like it's been too long since we've been in person together, right? So we didn't get BARF this year in person, and I miss you, buddy.
I miss you too. It's BARF is literally like, well, live drafts are always great to begin with. That's but BARF, it's different. It's just like, it's fun. We sit there and we kind of like compare notes and see how things are going. And you know, Danielle's a part of it. It's just a whole like family little atmosphere. So it's a great time, and it is a shame. It's a little over a year now since that took place. So all things, keep crossing our fingers. We will be there next, maybe for football this year. Maybe football. You never know.
I have very little faith in humanity in general. Yep. It seems unlikely, but I would love it. I mean, whether it's BARF or Arizona Fall League, or you're in Tout now, so like you can come out to New York with me. Yep. And party out there with us. That'll be a blast. So it's got to be something though, man. I miss it's great to talk to people on podcasts. It's great to chop it up on Twitter. But there is something missing, and I do miss that kind of human connection.
Yeah, no, Arizona, I think, well, we know Arizona will be open. It's just a matter of, are we having the fall league and everything? So we'll definitely have to do that, because that was literally the last thing I did before this happened. I went to the Waste Management Open. I was down in Scottsdale for a meeting. They took us to the Management Open. I recorded a live podcast with Bogman. That was pretty much the last time I interacted with a lot of people. So yeah, I know what you're saying. But before we get started, there's one thing I did leave out. I'm going to let you plug the snot out of it, because we have about 2.5 more weeks of draft season upon us. So what do you got going on these days?
Oh, man, just about everything, right? So Friends of Fantasy Benefits Draft Guide. You can get that by emailing me, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com for the $7 PDF. Or you can just go over to Amazon and buy the ebook or paperback. And that is The Fantasy Benefit is the title. So you'll have to type that in. Podcast, right? Sleeper in the Buzz, Friends of Fantasy Benefits, TGFBI. I'm writing daily at Fangraphs right now, writing at Friends of Fantasy Benefits, and then in season, I'll be doing DFS for Fantasy Alarm.
Yep, that's awesome. Busy man. Lots of time in the world. There's 24 hours in most days. Justin Mason has about 32, so it's cool. It's going to be awesome to see what else you got up your sleeve, because it never ends with you. It's going to be something next, so it'll be exciting. And you have Tout this weekend. Are you still in the head-to-head, or did you go to an only league?
No, I was. Let's see. The last 2 years, I've been in NL. This year, I'm moving. Okay. Yeah, this year I'm moving into the mixed auction on Saturday. Ooh, nice. They needed someone to move out of NL, and Sunday's my anniversary with my wife, and so I thought I'd
smart man
get some brownie points and be like, not that it actually worked, because Danielle, she's not buying into any of my BS, so. So I'm going to do the mixed auction for the first time. Should be really fun. I'm going to live stream the whole thing.
Nice.
So, since we're not live there, I might as well live stream it. So if you've ever wanted to listen to me talk to myself for 6.5 hours, that'll be happening on Saturday.
That'll be entertaining, because auctions are wild as it is. So a live feed of you going through the auction, basically in your head but out loud, that's entertaining. It really is. I guess I missed you going to NL, because I remember when you went to head-to-head, you basically broke the rules. You recreated the rules. Like, you didn't break them. Break sounds bad. You saw the rules. What was the rules? And you just said, yep, here we go. And I'm going to take it to you. So,
well, and the thing is, if you want to move to a different league, you can if there's an opening, but they give priority to the people who finish higher. So if you win a league, you've got the highest priority if you finish high in the league. So that year that I kind of broke the system a little bit, I finished high enough where I could get out of head-to-head points, which was, I'm not going to say anything bad about head-to-head points. It's just not my game.
I understand what you're saying.
And so as soon as I could, I was like, hey, I'd love to do AL or NL, but get me the hell out of this league as quickly as possible. Even though it's a really fun league in terms of the people in it. Like Paul Spore's in it, Clay Link's in it, Andrew Lamont's in it. Like it's a really fun table, but I do not like head-to-head points.
Yeah, head-to-head's a different beast as it is. You throw points in the mix. It's just like it gets a little wild. So I can see that, especially when it's like the only one you do it in. When you're doing roto leagues, you're doing, even if it's not even an NL or an AL league, at least when you sit down at that table, you know the player pool, you know what roto, like it still calculates similarly. But you get that points head-to-head system, and it's a different beast, that's for sure. So be fun to see that 2 drafts Saturday and 2 drafts Sunday for tout. So if I remember correctly, so that's quite exciting.
Yeah, I think AL and mixed auctions on Saturday, and then NL and the head-to-head points on Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I love Tout Wars. It's a really fun competition. I'm glad they expanded another league.
Yes, so am I.
More people in, because I think, including as many people as you can and kind of really getting to shine a light on some kind of newer talent is awesome. And it got you in, it got our buddy Toby in. And so I couldn't be more excited for you guys to be a part of it, because it's a fun challenge every year. Yeah,
that draft was one of the more fun drafts it's one of the only live ones I basically did, because I was unfortunately not able to sit down with Barf with you guys. But that one, listening to Alex Fast and other guys in that room was very entertaining. Good stuff there. Let's get some recent news in here, because I know we'll divert somewhere along the road. Ramon Laureano side is sore, had an MRI, supposed to be okay. Reports are he might play next week. But you're looking for a guy to lead off, a little bit of power, throw in some speed. Now he's got a side issue already. Like it can't be great. Are you really concerned? Are you not concerned? What's your thoughts on Laureano?
I mean, here's the thing. Like the side is like that injury that tends to linger and be re-aggravated really easily. I was already kind of out. Like it wasn't that I didn't like him. I do like Ramon Laureano, but like I don't end up with him. There's so many guys around him that I like just a little bit more, like Ian Happ. And he gets pushed up there because of his speed, right? Yep. And if he's not going to be pushing on the base paths because he's kind of nursing an injury, that kind of takes away a lot of his value. So I don't think I have him in any leagues. I might have him in one because I've drafted 74,000 leagues already. But it's very, very unlikely, unless he drops an extreme amount in a draft, that I end up with him rest of the way.
Yeah, no, that's the big problem I'm having, is the part where there's so many guys around him. It's like I'm in a draft right now, like you set in my queue, and there's just so many outfielders. It's wild, and it's a discussion we had on Twitter the other day with like Vlad and Zimmerman and some other guys. Is there are different tiers of outfielders, obviously. So which ones do you want to throw in the mix? But if you're comfortable with your player pool, there's outfielders for days. Yeah. So my idea is don't force it on a guy that's already hurt type thing. Now, this was like, as a Framber Valdez fan, a guy that drafted him, and 2 hours later he got hurt, and like all this great stuff. I'm taking any good news I can get. And I know it's still a long shot, but it's you're saying there's a chance. He's not going to have surgery for now. Things are healing properly. Still no timetable. If you were entering a draft, which you are this weekend, would you be interested in taking a chance on a Framber Valdez?
I mean, obviously it depends on the price, right? Yep. So I drafted him in TGFBI and the Barf League after the injury. Okay. But I got him in the 30th round of both of those drafts.
Basically free, okay.
So it's like, it's just a crapshoot. I think he's probably going to miss 4 to 6 weeks of the season. Yep. Right? I mean, typically broken finger, that's kind of what you miss. And you probably lean towards the later end of that timetable. So maybe we're actually talking more like 6 weeks of the season. So it depends. Can you roster a guy that's injured for 6 weeks? I mean, this is a season in which workloads for pitchers are going to be going up a huge amount. It's never happened before. We have no data to pull from, but we can kind of estimate that this could be a really bad year for pitchers, right? Guys going from 50 innings to 150 innings or more potentially. Like, I think we could be in for a really bad season in terms of injuries. So I am typically trying to stay away from injured guys, especially because I play a lot of NFBC and there's no IL. Now, if you play in a league with IL spots, you can take that gamble, right? But it's a risk. I mean, we know he's probably going to miss a month at least, right? So now you've already said, okay, 1/5 of the season. I know this guy's not going to be here for, and this could turn into like one of those, the Luis Severino situation from 2019, where it was like, oh, he's going to be back in May. And then July came around and August came around, and we're like, oh, okay, he's back in September, and I've rostered this the whole time. So it's a real big gamble. I would say unless you get a really steep discount, it's probably not one worth taking.
Okay, let me throw this scenario out there, because when this injury first happened, before the surgery concept came into play, I said, let's say he comes back sometime early May. Let's just throw that out there. Right now is ADP online drafts month of May, because we don't have main event drafts yet. So 12-team online drafts in FBC. Framber's ADP is 279. Mm-hmm. Mike Soroka's is 179. Mike Soroka, we know, is not coming back till May. Which one do you take a chance on?
I'm going to take a chance on Framber. I think the upside's greater.
And the secret they get, well, secret, but it's his finger, not an arm, a ligament, nothing like that, which I think is big too. Yeah,
I mean, it is and it isn't, because he's still got to grip the ball, right? So like, it still could be a real issue with him getting proper grip, feel for his pitches. The tiebreaker becomes which player has the greater upside. And I love Mike Soroka, but Mike Soroka, because he doesn't have strikeout upside, he relies on volume in order for those great ratios to actually help your team. And if he's not able to get that volume, because we don't know when he's going to actually pitch in games, he becomes a lot less valuable. And I made this comment earlier today on the Sleep on the Bus with Paul, was like, what's really the difference between a Mike Soroka that we don't know when he's going to pitch and Brad Keller?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Like, very true.
And I love Mike Soroka. I was like one of the highest guys on him in 2019 and 2020. Like I was trying to push that ADP up because I felt like that he should be going inside the top 100, and he wasn't. But he needs volume, and I don't feel comfortable that he's going to get it this year.
Yeah, no, Soroka's a guy I haven't even thought about drafting at all. I'm actually surprised I keep seeing his ADP where it's at, because there's so many questions still involved with Soroka. I guess the only question is supposedly early May, but there's still a lot of, like you said, volume-wise with him and everything that makes things very, very difficult. Another pitcher, we're having a lot of back injuries and oblique injuries. Like you said, there's going to be a lot of injuries this year, which is crazy. I didn't expect it this early, especially with some of these guys. But Zach Eflin, he's missing his next start. Back injury. He's one of the hot topics this year. Everyone's loving him. Strikeout upside. The pitch mix improved last year. How concerned are you with this one?
I'm pretty concerned. I mean, it's an injury, and backs are tricky, man. So, this is a hard one too, because I was kind of lower on him than most people in the industry coming into draft season, and Paul and I were talking about him back in like October and November. And I was just like, I don't really know what to make of what Zach Eflin did in 2020. Like, yes, he was better, but is there a real change? Like, is this sustainable? And so, like, we gave each other homework. Go watch every Zach Eflin start. So that's what I did. I went and watched every Zach Eflin start. And I finished it like mid-February. I was like, and I was bought in. I went, oh my God, I have him too low. I had him in my initial ranks in February. I had him at like 73. I was like, that's way too low. I pushed him all the way up to 48, dropped my ranks, and the next effing day after my rank update, he has this back issue, and now I've got to drop him back down into the 70s. So, like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of these injuries, and some of them are going to be catastrophic, as there always are. I mean, we just, knock on wood, right? But we haven't had any like major TJs other than Forrest Whitley yet. And so like we've in some ways been really lucky so far, right? But there's been a lot of these weird nagging injuries, which could become more prevalent. And so I'm not going to put any added risk on my team by drafting a guy, knowing that I could be put in a position, even in leagues with IL, those IL slots could fill up. And now I've got to make a decision on who to keep and who not to. So I want to enter my leagues with as many open spots as possible.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part, because I don't wish Tommy John upon anybody, but I'd rather this guy get Tommy John, so I just don't even think about drafting him instead of these nagging injuries like you're talking about. The back can flare up, the hamstring is going to flare up. We'll talk about that in a minute. The obliques, it's just anything like muscle wise, it's never good. So like Sonny Gray, I love Sonny Gray, and now I just don't even know what to do with the man. So that's
especially a guy like Sonny Gray who has a history of kind of
They said
injury,
last fall
like,
or whatever he had
yeah,
like a back issue.
This is what derailed his season kind of last year was this same back issue. And he's a guy with funky mechanics, and his funky mechanics lead to kind of these weird kind of injuries in the same way that we saw Tim Lincecum break down.
I was about to say, what Giants did we remember doing that?
And it's the reason why, like, I've been out on Sonny Gray for years, and there have been seasons where he's made me look really stupid, but I just don't trust those mechanics. I'm not trying to like take a victory lap on it because I had Sonny Gray ranked inside of my top 25 coming into this season because I was like really excited about Sonny Gray. But this is why like I'm very careful with these guys with weird mechanics, because over time that pitching is an unnatural action to begin with. And so if you're not going to do it with clean mechanics, over time something is bound to happen eventually. And something is bound to happen for a lot of these guys, even if they've got clean mechanics. So I mean, I'm bummed on Sonny Gray. I know he was throwing some long toss, I think, today, but I'm still like, I have my main event on Monday and Tout Wars on Saturday. There's no way Sonny Gray ends up on either of those teams.
Yeah, it's a heavy risk, that's for sure. Trent Grisham still is not back in games. He pulled up lame with a hamstring or a groin, or I can't remember anymore. It was so long ago, but they said it was his hamstring because the next day he's walking around the clubhouse, says he feels great, things are good, he'll be back soon. That was a little over a week ago, and he still isn't back in game action yet. What are your thoughts here? He's supposed to be a leadoff guy, like 2020 upside maybe type guy, and if he's got a hamstring issue for one and he's still not playing, there's concern for me.
Well, especially because a lot of his value comes from stealing bases, right?
Yep. Definitely.
That's why he was going in the 5th round, because people saw 20-25 stolen base upside. And if he has a hamstring injury, is he really going to be trying to push up first and get down to second very, very fast? I don't feel like he is. So, yeah, I mean, someone's going to take him this weekend in drafts. It ain't going to be me.
Yeah, this is kind of the disappointing thing. Like you mentioned with Eflin and some guys, I was out on Grisham, so I was happy when guys were just like sniping him up and leaving guys for me. Well, now he's falling. So now it's just like, damn. So there we are there. This one sucks. Carlos Carrasco. Like, you have to feel for Carlos Carrasco. The story is great. He just seems like a good guy to begin with, even if he didn't have the cancer situation. He's just a good dude. And he's getting older, which really stings because it's going to make this harder and harder for him. He had the elbow issue, and I remember when it happened, he's had this in the past, and he worked through it, kind of like a Tanaka thing where he's like, they pitched through it. So I wasn't as concerned. But he goes and throws today against live pitching, messes up his hamstring. I just read about an hour ago on Twitter. It was like a high level, I think it was a high level hamstring tear, minimum 6 to 8 weeks.
Ooh, okay. I hadn't heard that update.
Yeah, I'll look it up while you're talking, but it's supposed to be pretty bad. We're talking a couple months most likely, so I can't draft him, period, now.
Yeah.
What are you thinking on Carrasco?
That's a huge bummer. Like, I haven't drafted Carrasco this year, but it wasn't because of lack of trying. He just would get popped right in front of me every time, and super, super frustrating. I mean, it's, lucky for me now, but I really liked Carlos Carrasco moving to New York. I was talking about him earlier today with Paul, and I said, like, now that the elbow is fine, like, he's going to give you back in my top 20 probably, or pretty close to it, in terms of starting pitchers, because he was going to the National League against a division that had never seen him pitch before. You're going to get to go against a DH-less NL, offenses, and in a great park for pitchers. Like, this was the perfect spot for him. And I love him. Like you said, he's a great story, and I loved him before this story. Like, I mean, I've been a Carrasco guy since he was a reliever. Like, I've loved him. So, I mean, this is a huge bummer, but you can't draft him, I mean, unless if you've got unlimited IL spots. And so in Tout Wars, we have unlimited IL. So like, he could be in play for me in Tout as a dollar guy or something like that, stash him, hope that midseason he's back. But again, this could be one of those situations where, we think we're going to get him back in June, and then we don't. Like, if the Mets fall out of it and, he has a setback, you think they're going to push it with him?
No, they're not going to push it. And the other part is, if the hamstring is as messed up as it is, because Mike Puma from the New York Post, Carlos Carrasco's hamstring has been classified as a high-grade tear, which is not good news, probably looking at 6 to 8 weeks sideline minimum, according to a source. So he's out for a while. And since he's out like that, he's not going to be throwing often. So he's going to have to revamp up his arm and all that kind of stuff. It's like it could be a blessing for his elbow, but at the same time, if it's 8 weeks before he starts really getting going, maybe tack on another 2 to 4 weeks before he's ready to pitch in a game like go. You're talking 3 months at that point. It's half the season. So with that question in mind, and you have IL spots in tout, would you rather spend $1 on Carlos Carrasco or Noah Syndergaard?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Because Syndergaard was throwing a bullpen today or yesterday, and he was regularly seen throwing 96 to 98.
Well, I mean,
which doesn't mean a lot. Yeah. I'm just saying, like,
because
it's
not the velocity that is the last thing to come back. It's the command and control.
Yeah.
With the Tommy John guys. So I think you have to kind of go with Syndergaard because there's at least a timetable for his return, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And he's throwing. Now, to be clear, I'm probably not drafting either. Like, it seems super unlikely I'm going to draft either guy. But if you're going to do a stash in a league where you've got a lot of IL spots or unlimited IL spots like Tout Wars, for me, I think you lean Syndergaard there and just hope that mid-season comes around and he's Thor, right?
Yeah. I think it's like you said. It's because he at least has a timetable. Like, unless there's a weird setback, we know when he should be there. Carrasco, there's still a lot in the air right now.
Yeah, I mean, we might not see Cookie this year, and
which sucks.
So you don't want to invest any draft capital in that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Something to definitely keep an eye on. But hopefully the next time I do recent news on my show, it'll have less injuries and more just like cool stuff to talk about. But it's been a rough go. It's been a rough go this last week. Yeah, the Carrasco one, I was scrolling Twitter. I'm like, oh, that's dreadful stuff. But all right, I created a segment for you, and it's really lame, but that's a lot of my dad jokes type humor. I put sleeper or bust because obviously, people, if you're dumb enough to not listen to Justin's show, sleeper and the bust. So I did a play on that, but the idea is basically, is he in or out on a player? The in or out's boring, so we're doing sleeper or bust. And we're going to use NFBC ADP, but the ADP doesn't matter because it's just, are you in or you out on a guy? And it's some of the kind of more popular names, polarizing names, guys having good springs, not good springs. And we're going to get Justin's takes on this to see where he stands on this. And we're going to start with the first guy, a guy that he might be smaller than me now. I'll tell you that much. Like, he's svelte, just had his like 23rd birthday, which makes me feel really old. And he went 4 for 4 that day. And Toby and I had record that night. So that was a fun intro to the show because he's Mr. Anti-Vlad Guerrero Jr. So Vladito, he's looking good, looking real good, but I still have not been able to draft him yet. Where are you on Vlad? Are you in or are you out?
I'm out-ish.
That's what I'm like. I want to be in.
Listen, I mean, we all know what the upside is, right? This is a guy who clearly hits the ball hard. And, I mean, he broke projection systems because he just torched the minor leagues to such an extent that Steamer projected him to win the batting title in his rookie year. I mean, so the talent is clearly there. And if you want to buy into small samples, I mean, I think it was, oh God, now I can't remember who it was. It might have been Vlad. It might have been Frank Stanfield. Somebody tweeted out that, or actually it might have been Ryan Bloomfield. Who knows?
About the launch angle change?
Yeah, his launch angle is 19 degrees during spring training, which if it's 19 degrees throughout the course of the entire season, this dude's hitting 4 or 40 home runs. Like, that's, and so there's a lot of reasons to be like, it's time. It's, Simba, let's hold the baby up, right? That being said, huge weight losses or huge weight gains are often looked. Yeah, they're often looked at in the fantasy industry as good things. Mm-hmm. That's not always the case, though. And I was talking to Nick Pollock earlier today, and we were talking about this because I mentioned the fact that I used to powerlift when I was, in my late teens, early 20s. And I would, see a lot of these other guys who were powerlifting too, and they couldn't extend their arms the whole way. And this is the reason why Yandy Diaz can't raise his launch angle, is because he's so muscular with those huge biceps that he can't get full extension on his arms. And so, like, we've seen this in the past with guys with huge weight losses too, where they, we saw it with Luke Weaver, right? He put on 25 pounds when he went to Arizona, and everybody's like, oh, Luke Weaver's going to be back. He gained all this weight. How's Luke Weaver been since he was in Arizona? It hasn't been good, right? You change your structure of your body. It changes how your body moves and how flexible it can be, where there's a huge weight loss, huge weight gain. And so, like, this idea that it's automatically going to make him raise his launch angle is a really silly concept, and there's no real proof anywhere that has any correlation to batter's performance or pitcher's performances, for that matter. Now, what it can do is if you do things like, hey, you had a lot of weight, now you're sleeping better because of it, or now you're in order to get that weight loss, you've been exercising regularly and eating better. It gives you more energy. Like, there are added benefits to getting in shape, obviously, right? That's why people do it. But I'm not going to make a huge, I'm not going to change the way I think about a player because they changed a little bit of their weight. Like, we fall for this every year with Gregory Polanco. Like, it's a silly. Now, if you want to say this guy's a former top prospect, he hits the ball hard, all he has to do is make a tweak to his swing, and he's now shown that he's really committed to his game. Okay, I can buy that argument, but I have a real hard time paying the price for it. We're talking about a guy who's going to be going in the 4th round and sometimes even in the 3rd round in drafts here in the next few weeks. Like, people are going to just overpay because he's just lighting it up. And this is a mistake that happens every year during spring training. Somebody that people like, it's usually Maikel Franco or Mike Moustakas, goes through a huge spring training. He was already a sleeper on people's list, and now people are just going to pay out the ass for him. And I'm not that person. Like, Vlad tweeted out the other day, like, the biggest mistake I hear fantasy analysts make is I'm going to wait till I see it before I pay for it. Like, I understand where he's coming from, because then you're never getting a huge profit potential. I still want to see I don't need to see the production. I need to see a skill change. And if you believe that whatever it is, 25 spring training at bats is indicative of a skill change, then go ahead and buy it. I have a really hard time paying for the production that I can get from Luke Voit.
Yeah, no, that's you nailed it. And I like the point you brought up with the Vlad comment, because I knew what he was saying as well. But I'm like, I feel like part of him was like, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? No, but because I have to see it from certain guys, like you said, at least something that they changed in what they're doing. So if Vladito went went to the Justin Turner and JD Martinez school of, I'm going to elevate the baseball, cool. Like that might be something that works. But I'm with you. Very, very small sample size makes things very difficult to figure out. So you mentioned his ADP is 50 right now. He's going his highest pick 21. Like, that's not happening for me. That's pretty wild stuff. So we'll see. I want him to do well. I'm rooting for the baby Blue Jays. I love everything about that team right now. So it'd be great to see. It's just hard to envision it all coming together right now. But hey, maybe it will. He does have the talent. That's never been in question. Alec Baum, prospect, Philadelphia Phillies, came on last year. His StatCast page was bleeding red as everything was hit hard. He was doing it in the minors as well. The home run totals were, I guess, a little less to be desired, but still not bad. He was good. He's first base, third base eligible, which is kind of nice. Going around pick 108 right now. I've started to find myself looking at him more in drafts, not in love with him, but he's kind of more intriguing. It's like, do you want the potential upside of Alec Baum with the first base, third base, or do you want like an Anthony Rizzo? That's kind of the decisions right now. Where do you stand on Alec Baum?
I like Alec Baum as kind of a guy that I don't think he's going to be a league winner. And if you're drafting him to win your league, I think that's kind of a mistake. But I do think he's going to be a very safe option. I think like we're talking like mid-20s home runs in a 285 kind of batting average on a good team. First, third eligibility, which is nice because there are some big drop-offs at both of those positions right around where he's going anyways. So I don't mind Alec Baum. He's never a target for me, but there are drafts where he drops, and when he does drop, like I'm gonna be there to pick him up because if he had a different name, like I feel like people like, I mean, if he had a different name, I feel like people would be all over this kid, right?
Mhm.
He's 24 years old. He had a good first, kind of stretch of that first season. He's on a team that's going to compete, a good park to hit in. Like there's not much really to say bad about him other than the fact like his ceiling isn't through the roof. But
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of reasons to like him more than guys going in front of him. Yeah, just I think he's kind of one of those guys that for some reason at 24 people have called him unsexy.
Yep. Well, that's the big part right there. He's only 24. Like he
Yeah.
still can be developing and get better. He's still, he's kind of small. You'd think it for like a power hitter, and he might get bigger. There's a lot of positives there. He's got Hoskins and Harper and McCutcheon and Segura and Didi and all these guys around him. Like you said, the line at the ballpark. I get more and more intrigued as he falls. Like you said, I think I actually picked him up in one draft last week for the first time, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm starting to see something I like here. But we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. Now, a guy that I'm in love with, and it's been a heck of a yo-yo this season. Like, if you drafted really early, you were all in. Then he kind of took a few steps back because the Padres signed everybody under the sun. And then there's some talk about things are going his direction again. It could still go flat on our faces. We don't know. But Jake Cronenworth is going around pick 225, first base, second base, shortstop eligibility. He's pretty much the rumors or stories from the beat reporters. He's locked into the second base job. We'll see what happens, but that's what they're saying for now. Are you in or out? Are you sleeper or bust on Jake Cronenworth?
I mean, considering he's going so late, I think he's got to be a sleeper, right? I like Ha-Seong Kim as a long-term option in San Diego, and I was really high on him when they said he was going to be posted. I got a bunch of early shares. I was like driving the bandwagon along with a few other people who were like me and stayed up in the middle of the night to watch Korean baseball because he was dynamic in Korea. He's really, really struggled in spring training. And I think there's a real chance he doesn't even make the team. Yep. That they send him down to the alt site. They work on him with things. I think long term, Kim is going to be one of those guys. We've already seen that he can walk at the major league level. Like he's done that in spring training. I think he's going to hit for average. I think the speed is going to play really, really well for fantasy. And I think he could be a league winner at the end of the year. Like I said today on the podcast that Ha-Seong Kim is going to be the 2019 or the 2021 version of Garrett Hampson was in 2019. When Hampson, like everybody drafted him way too highly, including myself. They dropped him, and then he won the league for somebody else at the end of the year. I feel like that's what Ha-Seong Kim's going to do this year. So going back to the original question about Jake Cronenworth is the guy with the job now.
Yep.
And that is a damn good lineup, and he is triple eligible. He will probably gain outfield eligibility at some point, especially once Kim is up. I mean, Jeff Erickson in my TGFBI league got him at like 301.
That's outstanding.
I mean, just insane value that I wish I had jumped on a round or two earlier. And so, the price is going to start going up now that this kind of news is out. But, I don't think Cronenworth is one of those guys, again, not a league winner, but he's going to be an accumulator on one of the best teams in baseball, can cover a lot of different spots for you in a year, like we've talked about, may have more injuries than we're used to having. Guys who were quadruple eligible or triple eligible, like he is entering the season, are going to be insanely valuable for your team. So, yeah, he's definitely a guy I want some of.
Yeah, I'm a big fan as well. And the Kim thing, I think he starts out in the minors as well. And they kind of hinted at that with the beat reporters. His first 2 years with this contract, he can go to the minors. So it's part of the deal because it takes these players coming over from Korea, Japan, it takes them a little while to get acclimated to major league pitching. And we're seeing that, like you said. Yeah. So it's not that he's not a good ball player. It's just he's got to get used to he's probably just got used to the way of life here. It's a different, he's in Arizona. Is there a lot of food that he's used to eating there? I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of Tex-Mex if he's into that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a different animal.
Yeah, I mean, and they've never seen major league pitching like this. Like, they might have seen Dan Straley or, a guy here or there, but they've never seen 100 on the corner. Like they've never seen breaking pitches move the way that they move here. It's a huge adjustment. I mean, The power, I don't know if the power is ever going to play like it did in Korea. Because, I mean, we've seen, like, Byung-ho Park come over, like, who hit 50 home runs in Korea and, like, not be able to hit double digits here. So, but, like, he does have a really nice hit tool. The speed will definitely play, and he's already shown the ability to, like, recognize pitches, and where they're going to be in the terms of their location, so he can take a walk. So I do think he's going to have a lot of value, and there will be a time really, really soon for you Dynasty League guys to buy low on Ha-Seong Kim. And then, just put him on your watch list as soon as you hear that there's a chance he's coming up, or as soon as there's an injury, because this is a team that has a lot of injury risk to it. Grab him and, like, enjoy the ride after that. But Cronenworth's definitely the guy you want to invest in terms of your drafts.
The last thing I'll say on Cronenworth, he's 225. Tommy Edmonds 135. Give me Cronenworth all day long in that scenario. But that's me.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I like Tommy Edmonds.
I have a lot of shares of Tommy Edmonds, so I'm not saying I don't. But if you give me 100 pick difference, basically.
Oh, the 100 pick difference. Yeah, the 100 pick difference for sure. That part I didn't hear. I love Tommy Edmonds. There is a little bit of risk to him, especially because there's some rumblings coming out of St. Louis that they want Dylan Carlson to lead off at some point this year, which could push Edmonds down quite a bit. But that being said, I like both. And I don't mind, like, in this kind of season, like I said, with the injuries that are potentially going to happen, getting both those guys is a totally fine option.
Yeah. I don't want to go down my diatribe with the Cardinals lineup, but there's an easy fix that they're just not looking at, which pisses me off. Because just put Carlson second, move everybody back one spot. That simple. But
yeah.
All right, Jared Walsh crushed it last year. Just destroyed baseballs. Didn't strike out a ton. Like, just looked everything you'd want from a Major League Baseball player. But there's already rumors that he's going to platoon a bit from time to time with Pujols. He's on the strong side, obviously. He's going to get most of the playing time, but it's not his job full time. Are you sleeping or busting on Jared Walsh?
Today's was kind of a come to Jesus moment with me and Jared Walsh. So, Paul's been in on Jared Walsh the whole time. I've kind of been like, I'm worried about the playing time. They go out and get Dexter Fowler, so now he can't even play right field. But here's the thing, like, if you look, Mike Curlin, buddy of ours in the industry, is doing that amazing sheet for spring training. Go look at where he's hitting in the lineup. When he's in the lineup, no, he's hitting second or third.
Oh, they're still keeping him up there. Okay.
He hit today second in front of Trout and Rendon.
That's a good spot.
Yeah. And so here's the thing, like, in a league in which plate appearances are king, right? So we're talking 15-team mix leagues. You probably don't want Jared Walsh, because I think that his path to 500 plate appearances may be a little bit iffy. But if you're in a daily moves league, if you're in a 10 or 12 team league, I actually kind of like him, because there's replacement level on the waiver wire if it doesn't work out. And if he is hitting second or third in this lineup, somewhat regularly, he could have a huge season. Like, with 500 plate appearances, if he can keep kind of the power gains that we saw last year, and even a close batting average, like, I think he's probably gonna hit like 260. He's not gonna hit like I think it was 291 last year. But, like, he could hit 27 home runs in 500 plate appearances and rack up a lot of RBIs and runs scored if he's hitting second or third in this lineup, which is pretty good at the top. So I'm kind of starting to change my tune a little bit. I tend to play in a lot of deeper leagues. So I'm playing in a lot of 15-team mix where you really need to accumulate as many plate appearances as you can. And so investing in a guy like Walsh becomes a little bit more difficult in deep league like that. But if you're playing in a 12-team league, especially a daily moves, if you can move guys in and out based on when they're playing or not, he becomes a lot more valuable, because he's going to sit at times when Ohtani's in that lineup, and he probably moved down the lineup when Ohtani's in the lineup. But there can be plenty of times where Ohtani's not. Ohtani's probably not going to hit, obviously the day he's pitching, but either the day or before or after, he's probably going to sit as well. And it's not like Pujols is pushing him off. I know Pujols is having a good spring and stuff like that, but come on, like, he's 64. Like, it's time.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I've been struggling with Walsh all preseason here, and a lot of it is the deeper league situation. I'm like, I can't be missing at bats if the wrong situation. Now I have to bench Walsh. Like it's tricky. But daily moves is huge in that regard. And you mentioned the other part that I've been trying to preach to people is there is going to be some regression. Like, don't expect him to hit 290, like you said, and everything. If you're good with the 260, 265 ish. Then okay, as long as you know that going into it, that's fine. But don't expect this monster masher again to make things happen. But hitting in front of Trout and company, that does not stink at all. So definitely something to like. What does stink right now is I just want Keston here to hit baseballs again. But even in spring training right now, he's striking out at ridiculous clips. It's not good. I'm not saying they're going to bench him, but eventually you can only run him out there so often. He might play first base at some time because they got Colton Wong. We'll see. I can't draft Keston here, and I really want to. Are you? Is it sleep or bust for you?
I'm kind of sitting on the fence. I've taken him in leagues. I took him in the Barf League against you, which is even crazier considering it's an on-base percentage league, and he had a 297 on-base percentage last year. So. That being said, I do love guys who have the multi-position eligibility. He should gain first base eligibility really, really quick into the season. He's got power. He's got speed. Yes, he strikes out a ton, but so does a lot of guys. Yeah. And it's not like at 24, and with the Brewers, what they have on that roster kind of behind him, they're not going to sit him. They're just going to let him work his way through it. Yeah. And so he's one of those really polarizing guys in drafts. Like I've seen him go in the 5th round of a 15-teamer, and I've seen him go in the 10th round. When he starts dropping in a draft, I become a little bit more interested because there is the potential of kind of a dream season. And we've already seen it with him. Like we saw it in 2019, he hit 19 home runs, stole 9 bases in pretty much a half season. Now it came, the 303 average is probably never going to happen again. It came with a 402 BABIP. So, I mean, obviously that comes down, but he's probably like close to peak Rougned Odor, which is was super valuable. A guy who could hit 250 to 270, depending on what his BABIP was that year, with a crap ton of home runs,
30 plus homers,
and stolen bases. So 5th round is way too expensive. I'd rather have Brandon Lau, and I think there's the difference between a guy like Brandon Lau and Hura is much bigger than the ADP suggests because Hura goes in front of him in most drafts. Yep. That being said, while I think second base is deeper than a lot of people do, I like the depth of second base, especially way more than a lot of people do. There's a huge drop off from that first 4 or 5 to the rest of the field. And so that's why he tends to go a little bit higher. If he starts pushing towards kind of that, where that drop off then starts back up again, I'm here for it, but I'm not going to take him in the first 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 rounds of a 15-teamer.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem where he's going most of the time. But the thing you mentioned that Toby and I mentioned before, and it kind of got us a little more excited about Keston here, especially if he drops, like you mentioned, is the first base part, because batting average won't be as important. It's still always important, but not as important. The power is great, and to get a guy that steals like that at first base is a game changer. Mm-hmm. So that becomes much more entertaining. At second base, if you want to believe in Ketel Marte bouncing back or some other guy, I like the depth too. You get a Colton Wong later, you get a Darlene Castro, Cesar Hernandez, guys that just I'm with you on that part of it. But if you know going into it, you're going to be like, okay, in a week or whatever, I'm putting him at first base. That changes things a bit. I can definitely get on that page with you. Just people need to know that ahead of time, because you mentioned he's gone as high as 55, as low as 111 in March. If you're getting towards that 100 number, then we can talk.
I'm fine with that. He starts. I'm trying to remember where I got him in Barf, but it was he fell quite a bit, and I was like, I don't love this, especially in on-base percentage league, but the power and speed there, it makes a lot of sense, especially if you're like me and in a standalone league, you like to punt batting average.
Yeah.
That is a good person to do that with, because we've seen him run with that high BABIPs before all throughout the minor leagues in his first go around. So while we're kind of projecting like a 240, 250 batting average for him, maybe he does naturally have that high BABIP, and all of a sudden he's a 270 guy with all that power and the speed at first base. And then like that's a game changer for your team if you're not caring as much about the batting average.
Yeah, Hero was one of the best hitters in all of college baseball when he got drafted. Like, and not just for one season, for his career. And that's why he got drafted where he was. His defense has always been horrible. So that's never been why they drafted him. So eventually you'd imagine at least a 270, 280-ish type guys coming out of that shell somewhere. You would think. So we'll see. It is a very interesting guy to watch for sure. You mentioned Brandon Lau. He's a tough one for me. He proves me wrong every year. It's one of those deals. Like you mentioned earlier, Sonny Gray, sometimes you get him right, sometimes you get him wrong. I seem to get Brandon Lau wrong so far. Like maybe I should change my tune. I just haven't been able to because it just doesn't make me it doesn't appetize me at all. But you said you take him over Keston Hiura. Are you sleep or bust on Brandon Lau at pick like 75?
Oh, I'm all over that. Like he's not going to get to 75 in any of my drafts. Like that's if he's there at 74, I'm taking him. If he's like I have no problem jumping on Brandon Lau. He's got power. There's some speed there. Second base, outfield eligible. He's going to play every day. In a pretty damn good Tampa Bay lineup, a great place to hit in terms of the AL East. I do not sleep on Brandon Lau. Like he is awesome, and he like represents that last elite second baseman at a position that, while I said it's deep, it's not deep in terms of eliteness. So like when we talk about shortstop, everybody's like, "Oh, shortstop's so deep, shortstop's so deep." Shortstop's not actually that deep. What's
like
deep
9
is
or
the
10 deep.
What's deep is the elite pool of shortstop. Like there's like 7 shortstops that go in the first 3 rounds. Like that's the part. But after that, it's like, ooh, do I really want Willie Adames on my team? Like, do I really want Jorge Polanco on my team? I don't know that I do. Like, I don't want them as my starting shortstop. Whereas second base, like, it's the exact opposite. Like, there's second baseman for days. Like you mentioned, Cesar Hernandez, Colton Wong, Jonathan Scope. Like, there's like all these guys that are like, hey, if that's my second baseman, all right, I'm fine with it. Like, I can see some upside there. But there's nobody at the top. Yeah. Like, there's no first round second baseman. I don't even know if there's a second round for second baseman.
I got the ADP right here.
I guess LeMahieu is probably up there, and
that's an annoying one. But yeah, he's
in the third.
LeMahieu's at ADP 30, Albies 35, Whitmer 42. So there's 3 in the first. This is for 12 teams, so 3 in the first 4 rounds, basically.
And then there's Brandon Lau, and if you believe in Kevin Biggio, which I don't know how much I believe in that. If you believe in like Ketel Marte, I definitely don't believe in that. We just talked about Keston. Like, there's a huge drop off after those first 3 guys, and I think Brandon Lau is like the second tier all by himself. And I'm cool with it, and I definitely wouldn't mind taking him. And if he's there, I'm gonna. But I can also understand, like, if you go, Brandon Lau just doesn't excite me, then just wait. Like, wait, don't invest in second base until the end, because there are those guys late.
Yeah. And the fun thing about the second base pool, like if you just pull it up on NFBC, a lot of flexibility, a lot of it at the position. So that's like you mentioned having Edman and Cronenworth earlier, because you can play them everywhere. Lau's got outfield eligibility as well. You got McNeil, you got Muncy. As much as I hate him, he's got 3 positions. And then you got Dylan Moore. This guy is a tilt job 101 here. We saw power speed last year, jump off the page. He got his chance to play, and he played very, very well. But it's like he almost did it kind of, it felt like almost out of nowhere. It wasn't completely out of nowhere. It almost felt like it, that it's hard to buy in on it on such a short season, even though some things we do buy in on, some things we don't. He's going to pick 130, dual eligibility, second base outfield. We know some people that love him. Are you one that sleeps or busts on him?
I read the fence on this one. Like, I see the upside, and the upside is why it's tantalizing, right? In the plus column for Dylan Moore is he had that hot stretch. He got injured, came back, and continued the hot stretch. So it wasn't like he just got hot and then the hotness fizzled and that was it, right? It was like there was a break in between and he still was hot. And so it becomes a little bit more believable in that point. The problem becomes with Dylan Moore is the floor is so unbelievably low. The upside is huge, and I love that. But the floor is he's a short side platoon guy if he struggles. And that's really concerning. He's never really hit righties very well. Does a lot of his damage against left-handed pitching. There's definitely speed there. I wonder if he's one of the guys that gets hurt more from a deadened ball than maybe other guys at the position, which is a bit scary. This is a team that is young, and they're going to be bringing a lot of their young talent up throughout the year. Do they move him? Because Trader Jerry still runs that department there. So if he gets traded, then he's probably like a super utility guy, more than likely somewhere else. It's super, super risky. That being said, like the price isn't bad. Like the price is kind of in that spot where it's like, I can take a gamble here. But just remember, for every gamble like Dylan Moore you take, it means another gamble you can't take later. So, if you're going to go for Dylan Moore, it becomes more difficult to go after a guy like Victor Robles. It becomes more difficult to go after an injury risk guy like Byron Buxton. It's all about kind of your risk management. Like if you're going to take that risk where he's going, then you have to be very careful about your risk later on. And I like other guys who are risky later on. Like I really like Victor Robles this year quite a bit. I like Byron Buxton in that upside. And I like some of the riskier pitchers towards the middle and end of the draft. And so it seems unlikely that Dylan Moore is the guy that I'm going to pull the trigger on.
Yeah, Dylan Moore, I have not drafted at all for a lot of the reasons you just mentioned. The risk factor scares me. And you mentioned the fact that the Mariners have a lot of young talent ready to come up. That's why I won't draft Kyle Lewis. Maybe I'm wrong there. Dylan Moore, there's just so many moving parts there that there's guys just waiting to take a job. And these guys they're going to move them around in Seattle or trade them, like you said. So there's other chances I take, like a few picks later. Second base, third base, shortstop eligible at pick 148 is Andres Jimenez. Now, when the trade happened to Cleveland, there's like, he'll go start in the minors because it's Cleveland and they're cheap and this and that. Well, he's knocking the socks off everybody, and it looks like he's going to lead off for Cleveland, and it's going to be very interesting because we know how many bases he can potentially steal. Are you a sleeper or a bust on Andres Jimenez?
Oh, I am all over Andres Jimenez. I have been since before the trade. I was on him last year, and a lot of people were like, as soon as he got traded, there was that one little rumor that a beat writer kind of he thought that maybe there was a chance that Andres Jimenez would get sent down to the minors, and all of a sudden, everybody went running, screaming away. And I just kept drafting Andres Jimenez left and right and left and right. And now that he's going to be the everyday shortstop, people are like, "Oh, I'm on board." And now the ADP is going to jump up through the roof. He's got enough power to play. He's moving to a better park, so the power that he does have will play better. He's moving to the American League. He is going to hit in a decent spot in that lineup. He's triple eligible. He has got speed. What isn't there to like about Andres Jimenez? The ADP going up, yeah, that sucks for us who were kind of in on him before, but I'm still buying that. It's hard to find speed after their first 5 to 7 rounds, and he's one of those guys that has it.
Yeah, no, I'm in as well. When he was with New York, I was still kind of timid about the situation. When he was traded, I was all aboard because we've seen Amed Rosario. We know how that's going to go. Give me a chance with Jimenez on that one. The last one I'll ask you on this little run we have here, I'm going to skip to Randy Arozarena. This guy, we saw what he did last year in the postseason, part of the regular season. Amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Power, speed. He was a pretty good prospect coming out of St. Louis. Another outfielder St. Louis got rid of. But pick 58, it's kind of dropped a little bit from when draft season first started, but still pretty steep price tag. Are you sleep or bust on Randy Arozarena?
Oh, I'm all over that, dude. It's. Here's the thing, and people are going to be like, "Oh, small sample. Oh, he wasn't even a top prospect. Like he just had this hot streak." Yeah, there's a lot of people who have hot streaks, and they're not nearly as good as what Randy Arozarena did against some pretty damn good teams in the playoffs. Plus, he was pretty damn good in the regular season once he got up. What he does is something that I think people can't really see in the numbers. And that is he has an elite ability to recognize a pitch out of a pitcher's hands. And that is going to play no matter what. Like his, people are like, well, his bat path isn't optimal. It seemed pretty damn optimal to me when he was crushing home runs. Now, is he going to be a 40-40 guy? No, he's not going to be a 40-40 guy. But I think he has a pretty darn safe floor of a guy who could be 20-20, probably closer to 25-25 with upside for more. And he's going to play every day. There's no way they're going to sit him unless he's truly atrocious. And I just don't see him being that at any point. I think he's well worth the price at end of the fourth round in a 15-team league. If he's there for me, he will be on my team. You can be sure of that.
Okay, let's have some fun here. ADP aside, Randy Arozarena or Starling Marte?
Oh, this is one I've been asked before, and I've gone back and forth. I think the answer is Randy Arozarena. It's tough. And the only reason it's the answer is because Starling Marte has had injury issues throughout his career. And so I feel much more confident that I'm going to get 155 games from Arozarena than I will from Starling Marte. And I love Starling Marte. My question back to you on that is why not both?
Well, that'd be great because you can usually get them at the turn.
Yeah.
And what happened to me, because this is a scenario I just had in my recent draft, and I went Marte this time. I think I have like 4 Arozarenas and 2 Martes now. And it's like I just keep it's almost like diversifying the portfolio right now. But I literally thought about taking both, but I'm like, I want one of these shortstops. We talked about the elite shortstops, and Gleyber Torres and like Javi Baez are all that was left. And I'm like, give me Gleyber and give me Marte or Arozarena. I took Marte. But so many other times I've gone the other route. I could have gone both, like you're saying, and that could have been a lot of fun. So and then also, it's not against the rules. You can do it any way you want. But we talked about earlier how deep outfield can be if you're mixing and matching stuff. If I would have taken both, I would have had 4 outfielders already.
Oh yeah, that's a tough thing to do.
I didn't want to like pigeonhole myself that early, knowing what I can get later at outfield, but not at other positions. Like, hey, we're not doing that. Next question for you. Randy Arozarena, remember, no ADP mattering here. Or Lou Bob?
Oh, it's Randy Arozarena. I don't think that's and honestly, I would take 1 for 1. I would just take Arozarena. Don't get me wrong, like I love what Luis Robert could potentially be, but I'm pretty sure he led the major leagues in swing and strike rate last year.
I think you're pretty much right, yeah.
Yeah, so he is the difference between Luis Robert and Mondesi, Alberto Mondesi, is position.
Oh man.
It is like
maybe 20 stolen bases.
It's prospect pedigree, and I mean that's why but the downside is huge, right? And the fact that even today the White Sox said that Adam Eaton is going to be hitting second in the lineup means Luis Robert is going to be likely hitting 7th. Like that's what you want from your second round pick?
Yeah, no.
And
last one I have in this one. Randy Arozarena or Kyle Tucker?
Oh, it's Kyle Tucker. I love Kyle Tucker. So here's the thing. I think that, there is definitely some hyperbole when it comes to Randy Arozarena in the industry. People like me, just are just talking up Arozarena, because we love him, and we see the upside. But Kyle Tucker legitimately, his ceiling is 40-25 or maybe even 40-30. Now, is he going to get there? Probably not. But there's a huge ceiling difference, and Kyle Tucker is, on a great team as well. So I think there is a really good shot that Kyle Tucker is a league winner, where Arozarena definitely will help you win your league, but he's not a league winner.
Yeah, I'm with you. The last 3 or 4 years when the Astros were always making trades, and Kyle Tucker was always rumored, I said trade any of the other 14 prospects you have. Do never ever trade Kyle Tucker, because I saw him in Fresno and stuff. I drove to purposely see him, and I forget who their pitcher was that got busted for steroids like twice. Like they had an elite prospect. I made points to drive over there to go watch him play, and yeah, don't do it. Real quick before we get to listener questions, we have Corbin Young says more like Dylan less, not Dylan more. Mike Curlin says, we were just talking about Sleepy K. They said it'll be a mix essentially of who bats second. Robert does seem likely for 6 or 7. And LaRussa essentially talked up Grandal at 2 and even said Robert could hit second if hitting well. So it's, depends on what day LaRussa stops at a stop sign. We don't know. But that's how the lineup will be put together. Let's get to some listener questions. We actually had a lot of good ones. The people, the masses came through. And we'll start with the fun one out the gate. Cody Mack at Comac2, good friend of the show. He says, how does it feel to be the second best fantasy analyst in your house?
How dare you, sir? How dare you speak?
Have you guys figured out your bet yet if she beats you?
We haven't.
Okay.
We're still taking suggestions. Feel free to tweet at me at Justin Mason FWFB or at Danielle at Mrs. D Salinger. If you've got a good bet idea, I'll bet anything pretty much. There's been a tattoo bet kind of floated out there. But her money is my money and my money is her money. So it's what can we really bet? And it's not like she can make me do anything embarrassing. I wore a woman's bathing suit with my face on it. I'm not easily embarrassed. I'm not there's nothing that she can make me do that is gonna really be that big of an issue. So yeah, we'll figure something out, I'm sure, before the start of the season. But no, we haven't figured it out yet.
Simon P., another frequent listener to the show, asked, "Can we get the Cali guys to do a breakdown of the Giants?" I don't think we'll do a full breakdown, but. Who will be in the lineup on most nights? Who will return value? Are there any hitters that you're looking at in the Giants lineup? It's never a fun lineup to look at, but Dubon's multi-eligible. I think he still has another level to go to. Anybody that you're looking at in drafts from the Giants offense?
From the Giants offense?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I mean, Buster Posey's going super, super late. I think a lot of his decline has had to do with just being banged up, being an everyday catcher. Brandon Belt is injured and may not be ready for opening day, and so you could see Posey catch 4 times a week and then play first twice a week. He's going extremely late, and I think he's got still a really high ceiling with some upside for more. But other than that, and that's your catcher too, right? So if you're playing in a 1-catcher league, you're not even interested in that. And so it's really like a 15-team 2-catcher league that you're kind of looking at Posey for. But other than that, outside of Yastrzemski, who I don't really buy into what he did last season happening over the course of a full season, everybody else is going to platoon.
Yep, that's the problem.
And so Tommy Listella is interesting in deeper formats, especially on base percentage leagues. But there's really not anybody everybody's going to platoon except for Brandon Crawford, and you don't want to draft Brandon Crawford. So
no, I want Alex Dickerson, but we've seen that platoon. It doesn't matter how good he hits, Kapler's going to platoon him. Listella's the interesting one because he's been playing first base with Belt out a lot in spring. They've already said he'll pretty much platoon at third base, so he plays a little third, a little second, a little first. 5 to 6 games a week out of him, probably. That's interesting. But
and eligibility, which is nice. Yeah. So I took Listella and Barf.
Yeah,
if
OBP,
he's there, if he's there late in tout because that's on base percentage league, I may throw a few bucks his way. He could even be in play in a main event for me. But yeah, there's no one it's unfortunate because usually on teams that are bad, there's always those players you go, this team may be bad, but this guy could be the cream of that bad crop. There's no offense player. There's some pitchers I like for sure. But yeah, there's no offensive player that I'm excited about.
Well, let's talk pitchers. He says, is Logan Webb worth rostering in NL only and best balls? I'm rostering him in 15-team leagues personally. If you're super deep, best balls for sure. Maybe not in 15-team. He's more waiver wire, but best balls I've rostered Logan Webb. Is Logan Webb of interest to you, or what other pitchers? You said there's some that interest you.
Anthony Descalfani looked really good tonight. He got through 3 2/3 innings in 29 pitches. Only gave up a run. Aaron Sanchez is looking really, really good and has a roster spot or a rotation spot locked down. Logan Webb's an interesting guy. I love the raw talent. I still think he's pretty raw, though. It will help that the gate should be open. They're expecting to have fans in the stands somewhere during the second week of the season, which means that gate over by McCovey's Cove is going to be open, which keeps that jet stream coming in and the balls in the park. So it played as, I think, the 7th best hitters park last year. It won't play that well. It's not going to play as well as it did previously because they did lower the fences in right center a little bit, but I think it's probably going to play much closer to a pitcher's park than a hitter's park this year. So all the pitchers have some level of interest to me because that place is great for pitchers when that gate is open. So, but that being said, like there's no one I'm going to like overpay for. Like I took Aaron Sanchez and Radslam with like my 40th round pick. So like, I mean, that's what I think of. Like it's that kind of thing. It's they're lottery ticket guys, Anthony Discofani, like I like him when I'm getting him outside of the top 300. Like that's a lottery ticket guy. But there's nobody like Gausman is always been fantasy kryptonite to me. Like I remember the first conversation I ever had with Paul on a podcast was he came on the Friends Fantasy Benefits podcast and we argued how much or who liked Kevin Gausman more. And so this was like 2015, and I keep going back to the well. At some point, it does feel a little bit like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football. So like, I haven't been over drafting him. I'm definitely picking and choosing my spots with Gausman, but I do like kind of some of the changes he made. I do like the way San Francisco has done a really good job of kind of helping guys kind of restart their careers from a pitching standpoint. So the starting pitchers especially, I will take a shot on. The relief pitchers, I trust Gabe Kapler none. So there's no way I'm going to invest in any of that. But yeah, so most of the starting pitchers, I'm someone, even Cueto, I think has some interest. Yeah, they're all super
outside
cheap.
Outside of Gausman, they're all cheap.
The nice thing about cheap pitchers is when they don't work, they're easy to drop.
Yep, 100%. And if you don't draft them, they're going to be streaming options because it is San Francisco. Because like you said, I've told other people that's asked, with people being able to sit in the stands, the archways will be open. It's that simple. They might have it spaced out and like only certain mounds. It'll probably be restricted, but they'll be open. So it's going to be different for sure. All right. This one person at Mrs. D. Salinger, you might know her.
Never heard of her.
Yeah. She says, how can I increase my chances of beating Justin and TGFBI? I'd say get direct messages with Toby. That would be my
during the draft.
I know. I'd say make sure you text Toby. That's what I'd recommend, or Scott Jenstead, or a lot of the people you've had on the show. Like get all those connections. That's what I'd recommend.
I mean, here's the thing. Like don't get me wrong, I'm super proud of her because she had 2 weeks to prepare for that draft. She got the second COVID shot during that time, and so it was just and she was one of the people that got really sick from that second shot. So she lost a week of her prep because of that.
Oh, no.
And so she's had to learn how to play fantasy baseball at a high level in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
And she put together a pretty darn good team. Now she made a lot of mistakes with that team. So is there a chance she could beat me? Obviously, everything could go wrong for me. It's happened before. It will happen at some point again. But the honest truth of it is she stands no chance. It just, I mean, that's, the bottom line is I do this for a living for a reason. She's not going to beat me unless just all hell breaks loose on my team.
I am saving these clips right now.
Please do.
I'm waiting for a WWE scene where she comes bursting through the door right now.
Now, here's the thing, because this is the discussion we've been having, because there was a moment, especially after our first 10 rounds, where I was legitimately
just entered the chat, by the way.
She's also drunk right now. So there was a point after her first 10 rounds where I was legitimately scared. I was like, oh no. Am I going to have to quit my job as a fantasy analyst if she beats me? And then the realization came to me is, if my wife's now trolling us in this chat, if she does beat me, it's likely because she finishes in at least the top 150 of TGFBI, probably.
Yeah, probably.
And that means I taught someone who didn't know what the categories were. Not like oh, this is what 5x5 means. Like, she legitimately didn't know what whip was.
Listening to you guys describe these things to her, it's fun. It's fun to listen to because it shows. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So that means I taught someone who legitimately had no idea how to play the game, how to beat 300 fantasy analysts. Like, even if I lose, doesn't that make me the greatest teacher of the game of all time? Like, I feel like I'm up there, right?
You're like the Yoda. You're like the Yoda of fantasy baseball.
Like, so like I feel like it. At first, I felt like this was a lose-lose situation for me. Like, it was like, if I beat her, everybody's like, well, of course you beat her, right? You've been playing this game for 20 years. You teach it pretty much to people for a living. Of course you beat the person who never played before 2 weeks before the start of the draft. But and if she beats me, then I look absolutely ridiculous. But now I'm thinking it's kind of closer to a win-win, because if she beats me, I taught her how to play the game, and she's taken that information and run with it, which means anybody can do it. The beauty of like this podcast I've been doing with her, and the fact that she's doing this, is that I think this is showing people it's not as hard as it seems. Like, it definitely is difficult.
Yeah.
But if you listen to the right people, you listen to people like Toby and Scott and you and me and Paul, like, anybody can do this. Like, you just need to kind of put in the work and effort, which there is a lot of, and try. Because the reason she'll beat, I told her, I don't care how bad your team is, you will finish, above the top, the bottom 200, right? If you just try, because a lot of people don't. Nope. And so, like, I told her, like, just write down the list of everybody you beat and just hold that over them.
Oh, she would never do such a thing. I'm not kidding. I literally, I think she has a Mason BS meter somewhere nearby, because the second you mentioned something, she popped right into the. I was asleep, now I'm awake. It's amazing. And then Mike Curlin feels offended, but I'm telling you, it is awesome seeing her do it. And you mentioned fantasy baseball in general, it's challenging, but it's not like super challenging. The hardest part is it's so long. Like, you have to continue to do the moves, the roster moves, and all. That's where it wears on people. That's where it just destroys people. That's my thoughts, at least. That's the hardest part. So
it's a marathon. It really is. And people, like, we talk about in the industry all the time, I think the biggest barrier to people, there are two huge barriers for people playing fantasy baseball. Is one, it is super long of a season. It's 162 games, and she's just roasting me right now. It's 162 games, and it takes a long time. It's not just hey, I can check, like fantasy football. Oh, I'll just check my team once a week and I'll be fine. And then the second part is, we in the industry talk in a language that is foreign to new players. And I think one of the fun things about this exercise I've been doing with a podcast with my wife is I have to speak very simply, and all the guests have to come on and really explain it to her in basic terms, because
or in erotica novels, one of the two.
Yeah, Toby, man, that episode.
I honestly, I don't mean to interrupt like this, but as a guy that records with Toby once a week, just this week was our 75th episode, just the two of us. I didn't think he had that in him.
I was absolutely in shock, and like, we didn't release the video of it, but if you had seen my face during this, like, it was priceless. And it's been really cool, because I think we in the fantasy industry have this idea when someone comes to listen to our podcast that they have a certain level of knowledge already about the game. And that prevents, I think, people from coming in, because, like, if you had asked me first 10 years I played fantasy baseball, what BABIP meant, I would have really not had any clue what you were talking about. And if that had been a requirement of some sort for me to play fantasy, I wouldn't have played, right?
Yep,
So
I'm with you.
I think it's really cool to do a project like this because it really teaches me, hey, not everybody has this, and we're preventing the growth of our game because we're not catering to people who might be really good at this and might really enjoy it. So, I mean, I hope that she takes this information and goes on and plays best ball, because I know she doesn't want to do 162
She would
games
enjoy the hell out of
throughout
best
the
ball,
season. But like she could definitely do the best ball. Hey, I get to draft my team and then I just let it go. But like, I think, the nice thing about these podcasts is I think they'll be evergreen. So
big time.
People will be able to like, hey, I don't really know what you're talking about. And I can be like, hey, go listen to these episodes. It'll just give you kind of the basic fantasy 101 kind of what we're talking about. And then you can start graduating up to, Bubba's podcast and Toby's podcast and my podcast a little bit more.
Yeah, no, and that's the fun part about doing the podcast with Toby, because he's like, she's like Bill Nye the Science Guy when he's doing it, because he knows so much. So I try to I make jokes like my caveman projections. I try to dumb it down on the other side of it, because I've made the comments for years doing this show that I didn't know what baseball savant half of that stuff meant there. Like it's a work in progress all the time. It's crazy. Like the stuff's awesome, but there's so much of it can get overwhelming. And I like even Spore talks about it. I've heard him on like some of the pitch cons and other things that have like the Potapalooza and other things. He was on a panel about like, what do you do to start your research? What would you tell like one thing you do? And he mentioned like the most basic things, just look at these. And it's just like, yeah, start there. There's no need to go jumping off the deep end. There's no need for that. So yeah, no, the podcast is great because it does dumb it down is not the right way to say it, but that's what it's doing to make it simple so you can start and learn. And I like it quite a bit. So very cool stuff there. Let's talk about Sleepy K. He's been blowing up the chat, and he has a question. He has a question for us that he sent in earlier today. At Mike Curlin, for those that don't know, and he is doing an amazing job with the lineups. So go check that out. And he keeps tweaking stuff, and I don't know how he sleeps, but that's another story. Who's someone you were initially fading early in draft season that you find yourself changing your tune on and even possibly targeting down the stretch of draft season?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a tough one. I mean, here's the thing, and this is going to sound disingenuous, but it might be. I was going to say Garrett Hampson, but because I was kind of fading him early on, but now that he seems, because of Mike Curlin's draft sheet, like I can see like, hey, he's been leading off quite a bit, and it seems like he's the everyday guy. But I'll go with a different answer. It's Nick Senzel. Yeah. Senzel's a guy that I've always kind of faded. But the more I look at him and the more I see where he's going in drafts, I go like, yeah, he doesn't like have a carrying tool necessarily in fantasy, but in many ways, like he just fills up the score sheet in every category. And like, it's a good lineup he's going to be hitting in. He's finally healthy. Like a lot of the injuries have just been weird, fluky things. Like he got that COVID, like, he was played in the game. They pulled him like right after, because he, tested positive for COVID, and just kind of fluky injuries. And I think Nick Senzel is kind of an underrated asset right now. In fantasy, he's one of those like late outfielders that you were talking about, where it's like, I don't need to fill up on outfielders early because there's guys like Senzel later. So Senzel is one of those guys where I think I was fading him coming into draft season, and more I find myself ending up with him.
Yeah, that's a great one. For me, it's a guy going much higher in drafts, but I was fading him early on until I got to see him play to make sure things were normal again. And that's Austin Meadows, and now I'm just drafting him everywhere.
Yeah, I love Meadows.
He looked so broken last year. I know he had the COVID and other things, but even he just looked lost, like just completely lost at the plate. Seeing what he's doing now, he looks better, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, I can get back on that, especially at the price now. This is a lot cheaper than he was in years past. Mike Curlin chimed in. His is Dylan Moore. So, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Sleepy K. Doing Sleepy K things. Corbin, at Corbin_Young. You can tell the saga of this because I saw it blow up Twitter this evening. Has Justin tried Quest bars yet? Asking for a friend. Apparently, I think you're going to try them pretty soon, it sounds like.
Yeah. So, because of that tweet, and I responded to him. I was like, I issued the challenge to Quest Nutrition or whatever it is, that if they wanted to send me a free box of Quest bars, I would live stream me trying them for the first time. And for those who are like me and have no clue what the F Quest bars are, is like, I guess they're a protein bar of some sort.
Like a chocolate protein bar or something, is my guess.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Look at us. You look at us. We look like we eat Quest bars.
No,
just throwing it out there.
And so today, or like after I kind of tweeted back at Corbin, like they were like, "Oh, we missed that. We'll jump into our DM." So I jumped into their DMs, told them, "Hey, this is my address. I'll live stream it." And they said, "All right, we're gonna send you a bunch of stuff, not just the Quest bars, and we're interested to see." They said, "Don't hold back. We can take the heat if you don't like them." And I said, "I'm not going to hold back, because if they're gross, I will tell you they're gross." Live
stream it with Danielle, both of you trying them, because she won't hold back either.
I feel like I have to have David Mendelson and Corbin on when I do this.
That's fair. Yes.
They're like these guys that are like, I can't remember if it was David or Corbin, but the reason this started was because somebody had like tweeted out like one of those memes of like, there's a bunch of different candy bars, and it was like, which one would you eliminate? And one of them was all like, "Oh, I'd eliminate all of them for a Quest bar." And I was like, what the is a Quest bar?
That was Mindy.
Yeah. And like, I'm sorry. Like, I understand people like to eat healthy. Like I said, I used to power lift when I was younger and stuff. And I took care of my body much better than I clearly do now. But at no point was anything better than a Reese's peanut butter cup. Like, that is just, it's ridiculous. And I mean, people who have convinced themselves that like are just, they're just fooling themselves. Like, so I'm very interested to try it. I will try not to vomit on the live stream itself.
I can't wait.
I was already, I was telling someone earlier today that this is the busiest time of year for us, right? And I'm sure you're a little bit like me, in which like the season starts and I actually get to take my foot off the gas pedal for a minute.
Yeah, it's more of a scheduled thing where it's like, okay, I can do this show. It's just so much easier.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like, so my plan was, as soon as April 1st comes, I'm going to start the diet, try to quit smoking, and start working out again. So maybe I'll do an opening day Quest bar live stream to great. See if that works. But I have a sneaking suspicion that it is not going to go as well as Quest Nutrition thinks it will, or Corbin or David thinks it will.
I'm really curious, because back when I played football and baseball, like in high school and stuff, I would have the Tiger's Milk protein bars. So I'm curious. I've never had a Quest, no idea what they are, but let's just say I haven't had one for a while. And Mike Curlin says the only Quest bar is a quest to find a good candy bar.
Yeah, so, right. I mean, listen, like, and I'm not even a chocolate person. Like, I'm really not. Like, I don't eat a lot of sweets. But don't tell me that a protein bar or whatever the hell it is better than a Twix bar. Like, that's just
not happening.
Insane.
Not happening. All right. James _AG1 asks, how big of a sample do we need before we can say a pitcher has a new pitch? In other words, is there a usual threshold we can use to say it's been X games, this is a new pitch mix? More of a DFS question, he guesses, but just in general.
So I mean, X games is
how long do you think for you? How long does it take to say that yes, they've established a new pitch?
I want to see someone throwing a pitch 10% of the time. So if they are, working on a changeup or working on a curveball, and this is their quote unquote new pitch, until I see them throw it 10%, at least in multiple games in a row, I'm not going to believe that's actually a new pitch that they're able to rely upon.
Let's say like Glasnow was last time I think he threw his new slider like 20% of the time. It wasn't very effectively controlled, but he threw it 20% of the time. If he comes out in his next like his final two spring starts, he's throwing it 20-25%. Are we going to say, yeah, he's got a new pitch, or is you still need to see it like in regular season form?
Yeah, no, it needs to be regular season. It needs to be when the games count, because Trevor Bauer is throwing with his eyes closed. Like, that's how much some of these guys care about spring training. And we've seen this before with guys go, oh, I've got this new pitch, and they're talking about this new pitch, and Jason Collette puts it on his new pitch tracker, and everybody gets excited. Oh my God, he threw a quarter of the time during this spring training game, and then the real games start, and they throw one, like not 1%, like one pitch, and like that's because they don't trust it, and so do we want to see guys saying and actually throwing new pitches in spring training? Yes, we want to see that. But we don't believe it until we see it thrown a bunch in a actual real game scenario.
I'm with you. Yeah, because I remember last spring Paddock had a new pitch too. We saw how that worked. All these guys have new pitches. So I am curious to see how it works. Glass now, it'll help because I am anti-Glass now until he figures out a third pitch or some control of his curveball. Like, curveball's great, but when it's never in the zone, you can sit on a fastball. Like, it's that simple. So I am waiting for that. At Dap Scout asks, what players' stats from the 2020 season are you buying into that will carry through a full 2021 season?
Manny Margot. Like, this is, outside of Cedric Mullins, I think he's my most rostered player, my most rostered player this year. And it's because this is a guy's former top prospect. He's got enough power. We saw it in the playoffs to play, at least. Like, I don't think he's ever going to be a 20 home run hitter, but like, I think he is potentially Starling Marte going, 100 something picks later. And so, he's already on 9 of my 19 teams. And nice. If you don't think he's going to be on more teams with more drafts coming, you're wrong. I think like he could easily steal 30 bases. He's going to play every day. Kevin Kiermaier is not going to stay healthy, so like that's even more guaranteed playing time once Kevin Kiermaier goes down. But I think Margot's playing every day in Tampa Bay, and I think he's going to steal 25 to 30 bases this year.
Yeah, Margot's a guy I like quite a bit with you. I guess for me, top of my head, I'm going with a lot of Mark Canha right now. It's going to be hitting at the top of the order, especially in OBP formats, but just in general, he'll hit for an okay average, but top of the order, he's going to score a ton of runs, still hit you 25-ish home runs. And he's actually starting to run in the spring already, which makes me feel pretty promising there. So I like him batting second in a decent A's lineup. But I'm just trying to think of guys I have a lot of, and I know I have a lot of Mark Canha. So that's going to be a good or bad thing, but we'll see. Edward J. Gillis asks, everybody loves sleepers. How about 2 pitchers after the 20th round and 2 hitters after the same? So 2 pitchers after pick 300, 2 hitters after pick 300.
Ooh, okay. 2 hitters after pick 300 and 2 pitchers after pick 300. This one might bite me. I'm going to start with a pitcher. But Griffin Canning was like everybody's favorite sleeper coming into last year. And everybody faded him because he got injured. And he hasn't looked great in spring so far. So, there's definitely some risk here. But, like, there was a reason why he was everybody's favorite sleeper, right? Because he's got a ton of talent. He's a former top prospect. He's got a good pitch mix. And in spite of the fact that he did have like kind of the bulky elbow issue coming into last year, he's pitched and he's been healthy. He's been fine. So, again, we're talking about a guy going outside the top 300. There's a ton of risk in that, right? So, but that being said, I'll take that gamble. So I like Griffin Canning. I think that Mitch Keller is going outside of the top.
Yes, he is.
300. Another guy that there's some risk there, right? He tends to have some control problems. He has had injury issues in the past, but he's been healthy recently. I know he had a really, really bad start the other night, and people were freaking out. But the wind was blowing out like crazy. Jeff Zimmerman talked about this in a post on Twitter that I got tagged in. He was like, he goes, the wind was every ball that was hit in the air was going out of the park that night. So like, don't look at results. He's got a lockdown rotation spot in a really good place to pitch in Pittsburgh. Wins will be a problem because the Pirates don't believe in winning. But that being said, like Mitch Keller has a lot of talent in arm. He's been throwing 97 this spring. I like Mitch Keller a lot. We start moving into hitters. I've got to mention Cedric Mullins, right? Cedric Mullins was my guy coming into draft season when everybody was like Austin Hayes and DJ Stewart and this guy and that guy, But who's been the guy leading off? Who's been the guy playing? it's been Cedric Mullins. Got enough pop in that bat. It's got some speed. He's been leading off a fair amount in spring. Give me all the shares of Cedric Mullins. Already on 11 teams of mine. Gonna be on some more. I promise you that. And then let's see, another hitter going outside the top 300. Oh God, let's see. Cesar Hernandez, like he's still going outside the top 300. I know we've already mentioned him in this podcast, and he's kind of this boring guy, right? He doesn't really do a whole lot except for score a whole bunch of runs, which is like the most underappreciated stat in fantasy. It's the one that,
especially that late in the draft.
Yeah, he's going so late. I think the Indians were a team that said, don't steal. We don't want you running into outs. Well, with Lindor gone, I think there's a chance he could steal more. I mean, he's not a 20 stolen base guy. We're talking like 12 to 15, a good at batting average, a boatload of runs scored, going outside the top 300. I like Cesar Hernandez a lot, especially if you miss out on other second basemen.
Yeah, no, I agree with all those. Pitchers for me would be Josh Lindblom. I'm a huge fan of him. Just man, he has so many pitches with such high swinging strike rates. If he figures it out, which he's starting to, it looks like that's gonna be big. And then a closer that falls here that I was drafting before the Hunter Harvey injuries, Tanner Scott. So that's gonna start flying up the boards. Yeah. But I have a lot of Tanner Scott shares already. Hitter wise, I just had him. Where did he go? The first one for me is Sam Hilliard, especially if you pay attention to Mike Curlin's sheets. He's playing almost every day in some sort of platoon role, but he's out there every day, either in center field or left field. He has 15-15, if not 20-20 on a really good season upside, post pick 300. And then last but not least, I've been buying into him more and more. If you're waiting for a late corner infielder, or for God forbid, he's still being a first baseman, Joey Votto is actually like sneaky good. The COVID, he's asymptomatic, it sounds like, so that's a positive in that regard. He's going to hit for a decent average. He fixed his swing last year, so the power was back. Like you can get 20+ homers from Joey Votto at this point in the draft, still hitting in the middle of a pretty productive Reds lineup. So that intrigues me quite a bit.
If you're asking about guys going outside the top 300, it means you're playing in a deeper league, right? So, and if you're playing in a deeper league, I've already said this once already on the podcast. What's the currency? It's innings pitched and in plate appearances. And Joey Votto is going to hit third in that lineup until the day they bury him in the middle of Great America Ballpark. It just doesn't matter how bad he is. He's going to play every day, hit third in that lineup. And so he is just going to accumulate stats even when he is not right. And there's a chance he's back to being some version of Joey Votto. I mean, he's never going to be the guy he was.
He's never going to be the MVP.
Yeah. But like if he could hit 20+ home runs, that means there are 100 RBI and 100 run scores coming with that outside the top 300 at first base. Yes, I took him in the Barf League. Sign me up all day.
Yeah, you got him. I had him circled. But, I've been grabbing him in a lot of spots. It just too cheap on that one. And Edward, he's asking because he's a big NFBC player. So he's curious there.
Just don't take those guys when you're playing against me.
Yeah. The last one we have here is from Andrew Dewhurst. Do you think George Springer's bathwater will have a hint of maple to it now that he's playing in Toronto?
Absolutely. I think that Springer, like a lot of people do this, first year, new contract, I'm avoiding him, new place, I'm avoiding him. I feel like that is better to do when it's a pitcher. Like you're going to a new, park that you have to kind of learn how to pitch in. You're dealing with a new catcher, a new pitching coach, new environment. With hitters, I'm less worried about that, especially when you're going to be batting on top of one of the best lineups in baseball. No matter where they hit this year, whether it is Dunedin, I don't know if I said that right.
I think it's Dunedin, but who knows? It's a retirement village somewhere in Florida.
Whether it's there, whether it's Toronto, whether it's Buffalo or the Moon, it's going to be a great place to hit. Yep. He's going to be playing every day. I mean, he's one of the few guys in Major League Baseball that's going to approach 700 plate appearances. He's got power. And what's the one thing that the Astros stopped doing the last 5 years is running. And so now he's never going to be the guy we saw in the minor leagues who had like 30 seasons. But that being said, like if he can get to double digits or even like 15 stolen bases because they let him run more than they did in Houston, now we're talking about a guy that's potentially 35-15, even 35-12, with a decent average and like 115 runs scored. I think Springer is actually very underrated right now.
I'm with you. If he gets those steals back, very underrated. When he was stealing bases, he was a late first round, early second round pick, and now he's fallen. I think it was was it? I can't remember if it was Lindy or who it was, but I remember Vlad interviewed some of the greats of the NFBC, and he took him at pick 15 in the year he won the overall main. People thought he was crazy, but
yeah,
it's kind of what you do when you have that upside. If he steals bags, it's gonna be tremendous. So, But all right, we'll wrap it up there. I could sit and talk to you all evening, and we'll have to do this more often instead of every so often. But go ahead and plug everything yet again, and when I tweet out this tomorrow, I'll put an extra tweet to it that I'll give away a copy of the draft guide. So make sure you follow that, and we will we'll have a little fun, and we'll have Mrs. D be the judge.
Oh, I like that. You can follow me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can follow my wife at Mrs. D Salinger if you like people who troll me consistently on Twitter. You can get the Friends of Fantasy Benefits draft guide over on Amazon, or if you want the $7 PDF version, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com is the email to contact me. You can hear me on the Sleeper on the Bus podcast, the TGFBI podcast with my wife, Danielle, or the Friends of Fantasy Benefits baseball podcast. And then I write daily over at Fangraphs. I will be writing at Fantasy Alarm this year. I also write at friendsfantasybenefits.com and tgfbi.com. And I'm sure I'm forgetting other things, but Justin Mason collection at RotoWare. If you're looking for a Justin Mason bathing suit for the approaching summer season, I highly recommend you go over to rotoware.com.
Yep, you got to check it out. It's quite the collection. Anything you can think of, it's there, and if not, it will be. So go check it out. It's coming. It will happen, especially when things open up again and Justin gets to go explore the world. Just imagine the stuff that they're going to see. It's going to be amazing. But everybody, go check out Justin on Twitter. You guys know he is Justin Mason FWFB. Always a pleasure. This guy's helped many of us out and helped me out a lot in this deal. So always appreciate it, my friend, and we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, anytime, man. I love talking with you, and I can't wait to see you in person.
Yep, it's gonna be awesome. But until then, this was Bench with Bubba, episode 354. Catch you guys later.